Shalom to my brothers and sisters who are in the body of Yahushua HaMashiach. And this is the continuation of Yahuwah's calendar, and this is part 10. And this is the greatest confirmation that we can ever have in the New Testament for the death and resurrection of Yahushua HaMashiach will confirm the lunar Sabbath. Title of this, the death and the resurrection of Yahushua will confirm the lunar Sabbath. So here you can see a picture that I drew an outline of what happened on Abib 14th, Abib 15th, and Abib 16th. But first we're going to open up with the scriptures first. Now I'd like for you to turn with me to John chapter 19. And this is what I highly recommend for you to do. With the Gospels of Yahushua HaMashiach, Mathew, Mark, Luke, and John. I highly recommend that you read all these books first, because each of them have a piece to the puzzle. If you do not, you're going to miss a very important detail and you will not understand. And you will see what I mean as we go through this lesson. John chapter 19, verse 31. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was an high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken, that they may be taken away. So most of us are familiar with the story about Yahushua being crucified on Abib 14th, which was a Passover day. When you review the scriptures, you will find out that he kept the Passover at evening on Abib 14th as commanded and written in the Old Testament. Read Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 1 through 6. And then reread the Gospels and you will see it. So after he had the Passover, at night they arrested him. And remember the prophecy he told Peter about the clock would crow so many times? Well, that's a sign to let you know that the night was ending and daylight was coming. So in the morning, according to the scriptures, I believe they brought him to Pilate. Yes, they brought him to Pilate that morning. So as the day went on, during the daylight time, that's when we had the major events to take place on the day that Yahushua HaMashiach was crucified, in which he died. So let's get a quick review. The preparation day is fall on. Let me get my calendar if I have it. But I do. But your preparation day will fall on. Here it go. Will fall on the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th day. Remember Exodus chapter 16 that we talked about? That you always have to prepare for before the Sabbath day come in, because we were not allowed to cook on that day and buy and such. So the preparation day will fall on the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. So this is what verse 31 was talking about. On Abib 14th, it was the preparation day, and nobody could remain on the cross on the Sabbath day, so it has to be taken down. Read Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 23. Okay? So let us go to the next part. Now we know that Joseph was the one who buried Yahushua. He buried him in a new tomb. And you will find that in Mathew, I think it's chapter 26 or chapter 27. But I would still like to read first to you John chapter 19, verse 42. There lay they, Yahushua HaMashiach, therefore, because of the Jews' preparation day, for the Sabbath was not at hand. So this is why he was buried in that new tomb, because it was near the place of Calvary, and the Sabbath was coming in at sundown. Okay? So let us also go to Luke chapter 23 and read verses 54 through 56. And that day was the preparation, again, bid 14. And the Sabbath drew on because the sun was going down. And the women also which came with him from Galilee followed after and beheld the subject, and how his body was laid. And they returned and prepared spices and ointments, and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment. So when he was buried, they started burying him at the time of the going down of the sun. You can read that for yourself. Reread the book of the gospel, and when you see when even come, those verses I gave to you in the second video is your proof that it was at the going down of the sun. So one day was leaving out and one day was coming in. So I do want to review this picture of the day when Yahushua HaMashiach was crucified. So on the Abib 14, which is the first day, we see here, he was crucified in the third hour. You read it in Mark chapter 15, verse 25. And in the 6th hour, the darkness came. That's the total lunar solar eclipse. Remember, the full moon can only be on the 14th and 15th day. So they had a total lunar eclipse that lasts from the 6th hour to the 9th hour. And remember what the word said? That darkness is called night. That's another mystery we will talk about in another video. Then after the 9th hour passed, then daylight reappeared. And already, we knew that he had already died. Okay. And then at the going down of the sun, that's when they bury him in a new tomb. Now this would be the first day of Passover, which is called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Then on day 2, that's when everyone rests because that was the Sabbath day. Now your first day of the week is Abib 16. And that is the day when our people will bring the sheaf weight offering. Now here's the mystery that many miss. He was in Sheol for 3 days and 3 nights. Now keep in mind, the time that the Most High have is different from our time. He did fulfill that prophecy as well. So on Abib 16, the day of the sheaf weight offering of the first fruits of the barley harvest, and this is the 3rd day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Yahushua was resurrected on that day. But he rose before sunrise. This was in the dawn period. Look up dawn for me. In the dawn period, there's a timing where you would see only light. You would not see the sun. And he risen during that time. And Mary and them did not get to the tomb until at the rising of the sun. Please go back and read these scriptures. Mathew 28, verse 1 through 8. John chapter 20, verse 1 through 19. Mark chapter 16, verse 1 through 11. Now, what we just talked about a few minutes ago about when he was buried in a new tomb. And when the evening was come. So when the evening was come means that the sun was going down. So read Matthew chapter 27, verse 57 through 61. Mark chapter 15, verse 42 to 47. Luke chapter 23, verse 50 through 56. John chapter 19, verse 38 through 42. Now, to understand about when evening was come, read Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 1 through 6. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 11. Joshua chapter 8, verse 29. Joshua chapter 10, verse 27. And 2 Chronicles chapter 18, verse 34. Remember, I was telling you about it's important to understand about the quarter moons, because when the moons align in a certain position, with the full moon, you can only have a blood moon and a total lunar eclipse. This is why they had about 3 hours of darkness during that time, which was a miracle done by the Most High on a full moon day. And let me see if anything else. Again, I just emphasize that to read Mark chapter 16, verse 1 through 2, and 16 and 9 with John 20, and with John chapter 20, verse 14, and Luke chapter 8, verse 2. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are also on Facebook, Yora and I. And I hope this lesson has been very helpful in understanding the lunar Sabbath and the lunar calendar. And more videos will be coming about this subject for further study. Shalom.